Extra, extra, read all about it. Tom gets a new newspaper. Paper called the Enterprise arrives on the scene.
I'm Hayden DeGrow, and I'm the Culture and Heritage Specialist for the City of Yorkton. I love learning history, and teaching people about Yorkton's past is a proud part of my job. Join me as I highlight fascinating people, places, and events from Yorkton's history and take you where these places can be found today. This is Yorkton Retold.
Making headlines have always been a goal of many people, and that all started with newspapers. These vital parts of media have been around since the 17th century and have been a popular way of conveying information. In Yorkton, back when the city was simply a village, newspapers were not an unfamiliar idea. In June of 1892, a Presbyterian minister, Reverend R.P. Byers, launched a missionary newspaper that handled local stories. Known as The Messenger, it was first written by hand and then recreated by stencil to simple notepaper. Despite the eager efforts of Reverend Byers, though, the Messenger only lasted for a brief time, ending its run in September of 1892. Shortly after that, a man named James Peaker, who had experience in publishing in his home shire of Broadacres, England, decided that his new home needed a paper of its own. Buying a former Methodist church on Yorkton's 3rd Avenue, Peaker set up a printing press and launched the Yorkton Enterprise. Right where I am standing today is where that church once stood. Peaker hired former Manitoba Free Press employee Arthur McGee to manage and edit his paper. Their efforts lasted for 2 years. Afterwards, he was able to sell the newspaper to the partnership of J.P. Gilbert and J.D. Taylor that ran the newspaper out of the church. Under Taylor and Gilbert, the paper quickly became a hit weekly issue for locals. In 1900, Taylor became the sole owner of the paper. In 1903, a new person came to own the Yorkton Enterprise, Z. Henry Lewis. This new ownership did not last long, though, as Lewis quickly sold it off to Mr. E. McKay within 1 year. Unfortunately, despite the initial success of the newspaper, the finances of the newspaper were not looking good. McKay then decided to leave the newspaper business and sell it again. This time, it was bought up by a stock company by the name of the Enterprise Publishing Company. The owner of that company was T.A. Patrick, but McKay still stayed on as editor of the paper. McKay would ultimately leave in 1904 after a dispute began between him and Patrick. This dispute stemmed from the controversial thought that the Enterprise had taken a conservative stance on the 1904 federal election, which had been won by Liberal Prime Minister Sir Wilfrid Laurier. As a result, notable editor Sam Wynne took his position. Around this time, to better improve the newspaper, Patrick hired his brother J.A.M. Patrick to build a new home for the newspaper. This building, first opened in 1909, was described by many as the most up-to-date newspaper building of any town in Western Canada. As we can see from this older photo, this building has had some changes done to it over the years, like the 1937 changes of the front facade. While the impressive architecture changed, what stayed were the large areas for the presses. This building offered plenty of opportunities for growth. With Patrick's business sense, the newspaper began to thrive. Eventually, Sam Wynne would buy the newspaper and remain editor for almost 30 years. But the controversy of the Enterprise's stance in 1904 had not gone away. While the new Enterprise building was under construction, another paper was in the works by the Liberal supporters. Known as The Times, it started in 1908 and tried to work against the Enterprise, but it did not work out, closing down in just 1910. In 1915, another intended rival of the Enterprise was formed to try and fight its supposed conservative-leaning stories. Known this time as The Press, it also did not run for very long, ceasing its weekly Tuesday runs just 10 issues into its existence. Despite the rivalries, the Enterprise still flourished in Yorkton as the city began to take shape. Thanks to many good decisions in the paper, its distribution became so wide that the Yorkton Enterprise became known as the largest weekly newspaper in Western Canada. Records show that its spread was as far west as Fort Capel, as far east as Dauphin, Manitoba, as far south as Esterhazy, and as far north as Hudson Bay. During this spreading, the newspaper moved once again and for a final time, returning to the location of its original church home. The new building, which we can see here, was a bit more of a utilitarian design and was clearly one for the newspaper to stay in for good. In the 1960s, as television began taking over the world of journalism, the operation of the enterprise also was changing. In 1963, a huge media company from Ontario, Thomson Newspapers, came to Yorkton and bought the enterprise to keep it going. This allowed the enterprise to connect with many other major newspapers, such as the Globe and Mail and the Times of London, which gave it a wider scope of information at its disposal. From here on out, the story of the Yorkton enterprise would be corporate trading and evolution through new media. One such evolution was the first true competition that the enterprise ever experienced. In 1975, three men, Ed Bedker, Bob Tom, and Dick Durick, came together to found a new paper, named Yorkton This Week. This is a shot of the very first issue of this new newspaper, which was released on September 10, 1975. Their office was located on 2nd Avenue, with their printing facility located in this building we see here. For many years, the enterprise and Yorkton This Week existed in harmonious rivalry. But once again, time and change would come together at the paper. In 1990, as Thomson began to spread to more digital media and sold its newspaper business, the two in Yorkton were bought up by the Armadale Company, a large media company based in Hamilton, Ontario at the time. Armadale also owned the Regina Leader Post and Saskatoon Star Phoenix, along with many other newspapers across Canada. Armadale absorbed the two papers into one company, using the enterprise's 3rd Avenue offices. At the time, the names of the newspapers were also amalgamated, with the newspaper to be called the Yorkton This Week and Enterprise. In 1995, Armadale sold its newspapers to Hollinger Limited, a Toronto company that kept the newspapers until 2001, when Yorkton This Week and Enterprise were bought up again by another newspaper publisher, Peter Ing. Ing already owned the Estevan Mercury and offered a new perspective for the newspaper. One of the first things Ing did was shortening the name of the Yorkton papers, finally settling to the name Yorkton This Week. Where Armadale still owned the paper, other publications were released in Yorkton. In 1991, the company called Yorkton and District Paper Incorporated began releasing The Paper, which was a free advertisement paper for local businesses. This would later be renamed to The News Paper, a space in between the two words. In 1996, another paper, this one called The Community Review, launched, adding more local stories to the media landscape. The newspaper and the Community Review would later be combined into one paper, known as the News Review. Yorkton This Week and the News Review, along with other community papers across Saskatchewan, would eventually be bought up by Glacier Ventures. The Yorkton area newspapers were placed under the umbrella company Yorkton Publish Limited. With a city as remarkable as Yorkton, it should come as no surprise that it has a newspaper with a history to match. Leaving behind two mighty buildings, the Yorkton Enterprise's legacy lives on in the city despite the digital age taking over. While the sounds of paper hawkers crying out, "Extra, extra," are long gone, the newspaper still holds a place in the community.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. See you next time, History Buffs.